why has life sucked then? Well, why can't it just be easy? And I'm like, that wasn't the promise. The promise is that, you're not going to live forever.
Mm-hmm.
You have an expiration date. Everybody does. But when we do expire, it's going to be awesome. I often wonder if she knows that I survived or not, because the money was on no, because it was pretty bad. And I can remember looking at her and like drifting off. And then I can remember distinctly opening my eyes, like I was standing in the woods, and I was like looking around, and it was like you could even smell like how the earth smells in the woods, as far as I could look right and left, it was like a lane of trees, but it was like daylight, but you couldn't see. I don't know how to explain it. And I looked up, and I was standing in front of a cabin. It was like in a clearing. And at that moment, I was like, I wonder if I'm dead. I wonder if I died. I wonder if this is what heaven is for everybody. I wasn't here, and I was in the woods. And then the Lord told me, and I go, I'm not dying here today.
What's up, Internet? Welcome back to the podcast. Today I have with me Bernie Shepherds. This man, I grew up as a teenager. He was technically a youth leader when I was a young, awkward little guy, young pup, as you call me. And we've been chit-chatting a little bit here and there over the years, but recently we started talking a little bit about some of what I've been talking about on the podcast and stuff, and Bernie has a really cool story that we're going to get into today, but I just had to hit record now because he's telling me just the crazy day that he had talking to his dental hygienist, and we're talking about things like how do you approach people about your faith, and can you, like, do we do it? And he basically, his question was, can you go up to just anybody and start saying stuff about it, or is it more of a relational way? And I know for me, and sounds like you, it's more of a relational thing for us, how we kind
Yeah,
of bring it up relationally. But welcome to the podcast, man. How you doing?
I'm well. Yeah, it's cool. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you got a crazy story. I mean, I guess we could probably start with, like, dude, freaking you were in the Marines right at
Yeah.
what, high school and stuff, or
Yeah, like I was not studious, and it wasn't because I was an idiot or anything. I just didn't care enough,
okay,
and I was more going to high school for hanging out and finding out where the party was.
fair.
So, uh, and it was usually at my house.
Yeah.
So, um, when I graduated high school, I had raised my GPA from like a less than one to like a 1.7 or 1.8 GPA.
That's a jump.
That's pretty good jump. I mean, thank you, teacher's aide, library aide, Jim and Clay.
Yeah,
Heck yeah. Hitting all those Harvard classes,
there you
hitting
go.
them hard.
So did
Um,
you had an interesting childhood then, it sounds like, too.
well, I mean, to me, it was pretty normal. I mean, I didn't think it was out of the ordinary or rough or bad, or because I've told people about it, and it was fun to me,
Hmm.
you know. But yeah, I just didn't really give a rip about going to school.
Okay.
I wish I would have.
Yeah.
Kids, go to school, do good in class, or you'll be going to the Marine Corps.
So what was it? Was it just a recruiter showed up at school and you're like, "This sounds like a cool idea," or what?
Well, funny, no, I'd kind of been kicking around the idea of going to college,
Okay.
and then my dad's like, my mom and dad, though divorced, were both like, we can't afford to pay for college.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, how do you go? Like, I nobody's gonna give me
Academic.
grants. I'm not going to
Hmm.
get accepted with this GPA at that point. So I was like, guess it's the military or bust, man. So I started going to them all, and the Army set up an appointment and didn't show up. So I
Interesting.
basically was like, check, gone.
Wild.
Uh, the Air Force, I unked out of it. I didn't have a high enough ASVAB score.
Okay.
I suck at tests, man.
Yeah.
Like it's not my jam. Uh, that's at least that's my excuse. Everybody that I was in the Marine Corps in with, or everybody I was in the Marine Corps with, would tell you that I'm just a dumb as a box of rocks. Just fine,
Well,
whatever.
well, they tell you that anyway, right?
Yeah,
Regardless of
for
how smart
sure.
you are.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And then the Navy, I wasn't wearing that all white uniform with white core frames. No, that was a hard no. So the Marine Corps was like, you go to the Marine Corps, our uniforms kick ass,
Yep.
chicks dig them, and you'll have friends that you'll have the rest of your life. And I was like, oh, okay. That's kind
Okay.
of like high school football
All right.
in. And that's how I ended up joining the Marine Corps.
Nice. Nice. So
Yeah, it
what was
wasn't
that? What was that like in there?
in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, what was it like for you? Like, I mean, wasn't anything crazy conflict going on at that time, was there?
No, no. And as a Marine, if you were to say that you went in and you were happy that there was no conflict, you'd be a liar.
Hmm.
But that's because you never had to go to the conflict.
Yeah, right. Because a
I mean, the
lot of
guys
people,
now, what's that?
well, I was gonna say a lot of people, they go in thinking like, oh, I want to get into the conflict, but
Yeah,
then once they really, if they really experience it, they're like, oh,
yeah, it freaking sucks.
uh-huh.
Shooting at metal and paper targets is way different than those targets shooting at you. And
I'm sure.
then seeing dirt fly. I mean, I've got to imagine that the hours and hours and hours of repetitious training, it just turns into second nature.
Oh yeah.
So, but in the Marine Corps, I can remember my first night there. I was never that guy that was like, oh, what have I done?
Hmm.
I was just like, this is exactly what I thought this was going to be. Awful. Boot camp was awful.
Mm-hmm.
It was the worst. There's guys that are like, oh, I love boot camp. And I'm like, you're crazy. That was terrible.
What'd you do? Forget what it was really like?
Right. Yeah. No joke. Like, were you in the same boot camp I was? Because they told us at one point, they pulled us all into this huge room, like all 900 to 1100 recruits pulled us all in and were like, you're all going to Iraq. And I was like, finally, boot camp is
Hmm.
over. I was like, I'd rather go do that than be stuck here because this freaking sucks.
Hmm.
There was guys like running out, trying to run away. And I was just like, oh, all right, this is what I signed up for.
Wow,
So,
that's crazy.
yeah,
So when were you over there then?
I was in California 96 to 2000. The wildest thing I ever did was go on a unit deployment program to Okinawa, which is
Okay.
normal. Everybody does that.
Hmm.
One Christmas, we had our sea bags packed because they thought that Saddam was going to deploy an attack over Christmas.
Hmm.
And so we had all our stuff packed, and they said, if you go anywhere, you need to tell us where you're going. And I was like, I ain't telling nobody where I'm going. If I come back and I miss a phone call, I'll be calling. So, but nothing ever happened. We just went back after leave and unpacked our bags.
Gotcha.
So we all wanted to go, but that's because we were dumb.
Yeah, you didn't
We
know any
didn't know
better.
any better.
Yeah,
So
gotcha. So then
yeah,
the Corps, did you go do any college or what'd you end up doing?
well, sorta. I did automotive school for like a cup of coffee.
Okay.
Uh, did that long enough to meet a girl and um, get involved with her, and that's how. I mean, that's basically like that whole season of my life is where Christianity came in.
Okay. So let's
Yeah, it
talk about
was
that then.
sure. I mean, it was I don't know, probably mid 2000, and I met a girl, and she was I don't know, she was I didn't know she was a Christian. If I would have known that, I would have never even thought of
Okay.
talking to her at all because I'd have been like, what a priss. But she wasn't like that. She wasn't real prissy. So um, I don't know. I guess I don't know what there is to really talk about. I mean,
Well, you
we didn't last very long. Like maybe 2 years, maybe.
okay. Well, it's still a long enough time.
I well, in that grand scheme of my life, that was an eternity. But now that I've been married almost 20 years, it was like a blip, not
Yeah.
even a drop in the bucket.
Right.
It was like if you were to put a raindrop in a bucket over a fan and it dried up. That's what it was like. That's what that moment in my life was like.
Okay.
But
So you said something about evangelistic dating in
evangelical
before.
dating,
That's what I
yeah,
meant. Yeah,
she she was like, look, if you're gonna date me, I go to church, and if you don't go to church, this isn't gonna work.
yeah. Okay.
And I was like, well, I know that I'm a virile young man and I know what I want, so I'm guess I'm going to church. And I went to church with her a few times and got to well, I'll tell you what, the pastor passed around or they passed around cards and they were like, put this in the offering plate if you have questions. And
Okay.
I'll answer your question. I was like, yeah, right. This guy ain't answering no question. So I put some smart ass thing on there like, why weren't aliens on the ark or something stupid, something real snarky as the atheist that I was.
Yeah.
Uh, and I mean, there's time in between there because I can remember. Never mind. So, anyways, I tell him I send this card, I put it in there, and he called me. He
Interesting.
called me on her phone number because I didn't have a number, so I put her phone number on there. Thought it'd be real funny if he called her, like, and she's like, "Oh yeah, he's sitting right here,"
You
and
weren't ready for it.
I'm like, "Who is it?" She's like, "It's Pastor Brian." I was like, "God dang, dude! Like, what?" Uh. So I'm like, "Hey, how's it going, sir?" I'm still respectable. And he's like, yeah, I saw your card you put in the basket. Uh, you got any questions you want to ask? I go, well, uh, the one I put on the card, holding to my guns. He goes, I'll tell you what, if you want to ask smart ass questions, this is a Baptist preacher, mind you.
Uh-huh.
If you want to ask smart ass questions, you can. If you really want to know something and ask a real question, read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and get back to me.
Okay.
And I was really taken aback. Like I'd never had anybody, a Christian, speak to me in that manner.
Uh-huh.
It was new to me. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something different. And so I read it. It took me like 4 months. Like it was such a slog at first. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even, like, I'm barely able to read through any of this stuff.
Was it King James?
New King James.
Okay, so
New
not
King
as
James.
bad.
Yeah, no. There's all the these and dines are gone. So I read through it and I got back with him and I asked intelligent questions of what I can't remember. Um,
Right.
and then, it was around Christmas time and her mom bought me a gift and I was like, it'd be wild if your mom did something dumb like buy me a Bible, and she's like, yeah, that'd be crazy. And I opened it, and it was a New King James Bible, the one that I had that I always had at church. It had the skull and crossbones on the cover. It said "Die Happy."
Okay.
That's the Bible that I've had since 2000. It's going on. It's been with me almost 25 years now.
That's awesome.
At 2001, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome
So
though.
yeah,
So,
I mean, it was. I don't know, man. It was a what. It's my like you said the other day with that other guy on his podcast. You said you've lived like
a bunch of
15
lives.
lifetimes.
Yep.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
I mean, same.
Okay. Okay.
So
So where were you, like, you were in California during the Marines. Did you end up back in Indiana and that's when that happened or whatever? Because I know it wasn't too long after that, well, I guess it would have been. It would have been a little while after that, but not too terribly long after that you and I would have first met probably.
yeah, so I grew up in Michigan.
Okay.
I'm originally from Michigan. So after the Marine Corps, my dad and I drove back to Michigan with my truck and all my crap. And I lived there for 2 years probably. And then out of the blue, my buddy called me around Memorial Day and he's like, "Hey, dude, you want to go camping?" I go, "Nah, I'm good." He's like, "What else you got to do?" And my dad and I just got back from mushroom hunting. I do remember that.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, you know, be here? Like, what do you mean? What else do I got to do? He's like, "Well, you owe me a trip anyways. It's your turn to come down." I go, I guess you're right. So he's like, so I concede and I'm like, yeah, I'll come down. I'll come
Yep.
down and go camping over Memorial Day. He's like, bring an extra pair of clothes, like a week's worth of clothes. Maybe we can get you a job. I go, I have no desire to live in Indiana. He's like, well, you wouldn't have to live here. You could drive back and forth. I go, nah, I'm good. He's like, you may start out like 18, $20 an hour.
Ooh, back
I go,
then.
you know what? Maybe I can pack up some clothes and meet you there. So, and that was 2003, man. Been here in this beautiful state of Indiana the whole time.
The mostly flat, full
Mo-
cornfield state of Indiana.
yep, that's where we're at. That's
Yep.
where I'm hanging out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay,
I
so
would love to be in the UP is where I'd love to be at, but
mm,
I don't know. I,
yeah.
every time I think about it, I also think about the relationships I've made here. But I see young guys like you that have just they have went around. They've done the stuff, and I'm always like, oh, that'd have been cool to do. But I don't know. I've always thought I was a stone that gathers no moss.
Mm,
But I'm maybe done rolling.
right.
You know,
Fair
I've
enough.
been here for 22 years now, so
Yeah. Well,
everybody's
and
like, "You're a Hoosier now." I was like, "No, I am not. No, I am not."
yeah. No, I mean honestly, the only reason I gallivanted the way that I did was just because I didn't feel like I had the community in Indiana. But the only reason we're going eventually back to the Midwest is because of the family and the that whole dynamic. Um,
Yeah, it's weird how that works, right?
hmm
Like when you're young, you feel like nobody gets me. Like I just don't have the community here. And then all of a sudden the pitter patter of feet happen and you're like, man, I wish I was closer to family.
Yep, yep,
Weird.
yep.
Weird
And
how that
then
works.
and then Emma has a ton of friends back in that area that, and we don't have anything here. I mean, pretty much all of her friends left after her school was done over a
Yeah.
year ago now, and so it's just like, all right,
That's
it's
rough
time.
too, man. Especially like it's it's rough because you want your son or daughter to know their grandparents
Hmm.
and their aunts and their uncles and their family.
Yep.
You want that for them. And you
Hmm.
want that for well, I shouldn't put words in your mouth, but some people want their they want that for those people, like
Hmm.
for their parents, and for their brothers and sisters. They want that for those people.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, it's weird. You hit a certain age, and all of a sudden you're like, well, maybe family's more important than I thought it was.
Well, yeah. Yep. Yep.
You know,
But
and
also
not to say that. What's that?
I was gonna say I was also looking for community, and honestly, I never found quite what I needed. And
Yeah,
since being in Ohio with her friends and family and stuff, I'm like, oh, like one of her closest friends, she's married to a guy, and he and I were talking for the first time ever, and we were just like, did we just become best friends?
yeah, right. And all the social media like memes and gifs is real life. Like dudes, all it takes is like, hey, do you like motorcycles? Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
like motorcycles. Cool, you want to be best friends? Yeah,
Honestly, pretty
that's all
much.
it takes.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and for women, they gotta like nurture that thing, dude.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's people I'm friends with that uh, just he it's not like a everybody is friends together.
Yep.
It's just like me and the dad are friends. Like there's no other connection other than that, and
Uh-huh.
we're not interested in conjoining the families or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
like introducing everyone. It's fine because you may learn that maybe when your kids get to a certain age, they like who they like because also at a certain age, they like whoever you bring around them.
Hmm.
And then they nurture that friendship over years because we have those friends.
Yep.
And then there's new friends that, your kids could be freaking gasoline and oil
Yeah.
and it could be completely combustible.
Yep.
And we have friends like that we don't talk to as much,
Mm.
unfortunately.
Yep.
But yeah, it's I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. I hate to
Yeah.
say that, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know
Uh,
how else to put it.
no, it's exactly how it goes though.
For
Um,
sure.
so so you ended up in Indiana, and then what ended up so it wasn't that many years between you kind of deciding to that you did believe in this thing and then started
Yeah,
doing the like even helping out at youth ministry. Like what was that? Like
that was
especially
never that
well,
was never on my radar ever.
hmm.
Um, the pastor at Park Chapel at the time, Danny,
Yep.
I was in a young adult small group,
Okay.
and he was like, "Hey, we need people to be youth leaders." And I was like, I could do that. I probably got enough jacked up life that I could probably help some kids out.
Yeah.
So I jumped in like head first, like headlong. Like didn't even ask questions. I just was like, yeah, that sounds like it's my jam.
Uh-huh.
So, and I've basically been working with youth ever since.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, uh, just I can remember when I started going to Park Chapel, I went into Lamb's Books because it was the only bookstore around,
Hmm.
and I met what I now call my Indiana mom, Mary Jerome. Who do you remember Eric Jerome?
Vaguely.
He'd
Yeah.
have been a little older than you.
Hmm.
That was his mom, and she kind of took me in because I don't know, probably looked like a lost, wayward puppy, and for some reason, old ladies love me. I don't. I give off that like old lady vibe, I guess. I don't know. I like to bake.
Okay.
Antiques are my jam. I love them. So I
Yeah.
think old ladies just kind of are feel comfortable around me for whatever reason. And
Which is kind of
at that time,
hilarious because, I mean, even as like a youth leader or whatever, most people I think would probably look at you with the big old beard and the tattoos, sort of, and like they'd be like,
yeah,
"Whoa, this guy."
yeah. And what's crazy is she. she had no problems. I just happened to ask. I was like, because I was going to church with my buddy that invited me to live in Indiana,
Hmm.
and he was going to like a Assembly of God church or something like that,
Hmm.
east on 40, over by that. It was a bait shop, had that big wire bass out there. Well, there
Okay.
was a church over there, and I was kind of involved with them. And I was just looking for something else.
Yeah.
And I went into Lamb's books. I go, is there any? And Mary told me about it. You ought to come try our church. I go, is there anyone there like me? She goes, honey, there's no one like you anywhere around here. There's nobody like you. And what's weird is that I would say Park Chapel started attracting vagrant weirdos like myself ever since then.
That's awesome.
Like I bet it was more like real white collar slash into blue collar type
Hmm.
folks that were, pretty much the same. Now, I hate using the word cookie cutter because it has a negative connotation,
Hmm.
but I don't know how else to say it. Just
Yeah.
kind of the same Christian over and over and over and over.
Hmm.
And then, you get some different folks in there that have some tattoos that, I had like 6 gauge hoops in my ears. Like it was
Hmm.
and chains off a wallet and like the whole thing,
Yep.
like spiked, was different. I just looked different.
Uh-huh.
So, but yeah, into metal.
Yep.
I was the only person in there until, I don't know if you were that much of a metalhead at that point,
I was into a
but
different type of metal at that point. I was into like European symphony metal.
what was that band that had like a half of a heart? Was it called Him or something like that?
I vaguely remember that
It had
genre.
like
Yeah.
it was had a woman singer or something,
No, that was
and they were
definitely a
very,
dude, but it sounded like a
oh,
woman.
okay.
Yeah. No, I
My
never got
my
into them
bad,
though.
hymn singer, possible hymn singer for thinking you're a lady. My bad. Uh, but yeah, I can remember just being a different vibe than what they were used to,
Yep.
and even being the topic of like other adults' conversation that had been told to me. Well, what if somebody brought home someone like Bernie, and they were like, oh no, oh no, no, oh no. And I was like, oh, that stings.
Yeah.
Not really. Like, perfect. That
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be my jam either.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, kind of just took off from there with my Christian walk, to be honest.
Hmm.
It really started in at Park Chapel. I loved that church, and I was bummed to have to leave, but
Yeah.
it was like you said yesterday, it was a freaking haul,
Yeah. 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 Long drive from where you're at. Yeah.
especially
But
with a youngin.
yeah, I'm sure. But what you were just saying about people talking about and just feeling weird about yeah, I remember when I did YWAM back in 2013, we went to Fiji for our outreach, and the lady we stayed with, I didn't know this till like later on. She told me, she's like, the first night you guys stayed with us, she's like, I called my parents and I was like, one of them has tattoos.
Yeah, right,
And she's like, and you completely broke my paradigm of what people can be like
right.
and stuff. And I was like, well, first of all, it's culturally. I feel like America right now, at that point in time, I was like, tattoos are more of a, at that point, more of like a expression than a sign that you're in a gang, which is what she
Yeah, right.
thought.
It's more
And
the norm, right?
yeah, but I'm sure you feel the same way. I love breaking people's paradigm about what they expect when they see you.
Yes.
It's fun.
I When I first went into Park Chapel, I went in there in the evening
Hmm.
and I saw cars outside and the door was unlocked. So I went in. I just went in. Or maybe it was afternoon, I can't remember. Um and I walked into the offices, and Mark Clark was in there.
Okay.
You remember Mark Clark?
Maybe.
Okay, he was an associate pastor.
Okay.
Uh, I went in there, and unbeknownst to me, his daughter had walked up to the window behind him, and she was like, do you need me to call 911?
Oh my
He's like, no,
God.
no, no, you're good. No, it's okay. Or she was like, are you good? Is it okay? He's like, oh yeah, you're good, you're good. So that was my first introduction. Um, there's another time this lady here in Anderson, she used to have basically like she would have a garage sale of sorts,
Uh-huh.
but it was like her like little old lady King James Bible web
Okay.
to like evan or evangelize the people.
Okay.
I just like going to garage sales, and I'm asking her about prices and stuff, and she goes, uh, that's not for sale, but I do have a Bible." I go, "Oh, okay. Yeah. Uh, honey, do you go to church?" I'm like, "Yes, ma'am. I go every Sunday. I go over here to Madison Park." She's like, "Well, do you have a Bible?" I go, "Yes, ma'am, I do." And she's like, "But is it a real Bible? Is it a King James Bible?" I go, "No, ma'am, it's a New King James, but I love it. I read it all the time." She's like,
Hmm.
"Honey, I think you need a real Bible." And she gave me a King James. But I mean, so I guess what I'm getting at is not malicious
Yeah, yeah.
whatsoever. I never have taken it. I've had people be malicious to me
Uh-huh.
before, and it's mostly for being a Christian, not being one.
Right.
So I have never been like, "Oh my, I can't believe you'd say that to me." Like
No.
they're
Yeah.
just they don't know. They don't know
Exactly.
what they don't know, I guess is what I'm saying. Like,
Exactly. But it is fun to be like for them to see them go from like, oh, to
oh,
oh, okay.
well,
Wait a
and
minute.
then them trying to wrap their mind around what church could you possibly go to? Are you in a halfway house prison ministry?
Uh-huh.
How are you out? Like, did you just get out of prison? I don't even have that many tattoos, but that's the vibe I give off apparently.
Uh-huh. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I love like I said, little old lady vibes. I give them off hardcore, and they love
Uh-huh.
me,
Uh-huh.
even if
Yeah,
they don't know it.
that's awesome. And then you get married, you have a kid, you're up in
Yeah,
a little bit further north, so things are different.
yeah. We've been married since '06. We were still going to Park Chapel when we got married. We went to Park Chapel up until Eva was born, who is now
Didn't didn't
what's
before you
that?
got married, you room with Mark Scott?
I did.
Dude, I love Mark
Yeah,
Scott.
good memory. Me and Mark are still tight.
Oh,
He was
that's
at my
awesome.
house last month,
My
helping me
parents
after a
my parents still hang out with him whenever they can.
awesome. You
Yeah.
know what? I've never met your parents
Really?
ever. Yeah,
That's
all the
funny.
years, and I didn't even know you had siblings
Oh yeah. Yeah.
until I saw your first podcast. I was like, he has a sibling? I thought you were an only child.
He was young when I was in Park Chapel, yeah.
How much? How much are you the
Five and a
oldest?
half or 4.5 years.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So he would have been in like children's ministry.
Yes.
Gotcha,
Yep.
gotcha. Yeah, I had you up through Fred all the way to regular youth group,
Uh-huh.
and then you were playing drums in the worship band.
Yep.
You and Victoria and Lydia and Jesse, uh, Ben, Ben
Mm.
Rogers.
Mm.
Dude, I could rattle off names all day long.
Yep. Yep. And then all that was under Chris. Man,
Yeah,
that guy was definitely instrumental in my life at that time for sure. Uh,
that poor dude's been run through the freaking ringer.
I know I've seen a little bit. I don't know a
I
lot about
chat
it,
with
but
him every now and again. Um, I don't know. I just like to, I try to keep in touch with people as best I can.
Hmm.
Um, but dude, it's just, he's had a rough, the devil works on him hardcore.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just makes me think that he must be or is doing or has done something really right to have that much, like the eye of Sauron on him
Yep.
like that, to just have to be drugged through all that. So
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
man.
I know that I've felt that before. Like you're just happy going along, and then all of a sudden, bam!
Yep.
And then it feels like you're like, what have I? And you don't ever think about it in the moment, like, oh, I must have been really doing something right. You're just
Hmm.
like, this freaking sucks.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Yeah, every once
and
in a
I
while I'll
felt
get
that
in
this
that.
whole time when we were trying to set something up. I'm like, man, this kid, you're not a kid. I'm sorry. This
It's
guy's got
fair.
the freaking devil on his ass so hard.
It's felt
God
like it a little
dang.
bit. Yeah. It has felt
Do
like it a
you
little bit.
so did do you realize that when you're in the moment, or do you just see the crap storm that you're in?
A lot of times I will, not every time, but like this
Right.
time we for sure were just like, okay, we feel like, because I, especially getting back into more of a focus on more of a ministry mindset, I guess you could call it, or like, because I came out of those years of sort of like, what in the world am I doing with my life again? To all of a sudden the Lord's like, hey, I'm bringing you into something again. And so these last few years when things would happen, I'd be like, okay, something's trying to keep me from it, or at the
Right.
very least this is one of those like processes that's like the pressure to refine gold or heat the whatever,
Yeah.
all that. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I just got to get through it because it's coming against me. But there were sometimes during this process of like getting hit by a truck, I remember feeling like, and I was talking to my friend who sees in the spirit, and he was like, I sort of just get this feeling that like something was after you and your angel stopped it from being as bad as it could have been. I was like,
Dude.
honestly, probably.
Dude. That's heavy.
Yeah.
Like that's not just that's I don't know, that's not just like a thing. That's like heavy. Like all that spiritual warfare stuff.
Hmm.
I we recently went through this like a class through our church, and it was something I didn't want to do. And Beth was doing it to get it more involved, and I was like, I feel like I'm plenty involved. And then
Hmm.
it's the thing where you're like, well, I don't want to be a jerk. Like I have that night free. Am I not just going to go because I don't want to?
Yeah.
I don't want to. Or am I going to be honor my wife and go?
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll just go. I'm I'm gonna be mad about it though. Hmm. So I end up going. It's called Rooted, and we had like it drug up some stuff, man. And then all of a sudden, the whole time they're like, "Hey, you're gonna get into this class, and you're gonna realize that the devil is attacking you,
Hmm.
and you're gonna feel an attack. You're gonna feel attacked. So, your car's gonna something's gonna happen." And then, sure to form, just weird stuff started happening. And then uh, it's like I've noticed ever since, like if just stuff. And then you're like, wait a minute.
Hmm.
This whole time, stuff like that's been happening to me. And I'm just like, oh, what am I going to do? Why is this happening to me? Well,
Yep.
now, you know, I should have known all along, but now for sure I know
Yeah.
that you're 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 doing something in the kingdom for the kingdom,
Hmm.
and the devil is just like, yo,
Yep.
nah.
He'd rather you sit still and do nothing.
Yeah, and he's happy with that. And what's funny? There's people that will be like, wait a minute, if I just stop doing this, then it'll all go away. and they're okay with that.
Mm.
But I couldn't. I'm more of the mindset, and always have been, as a contrarian, and to go against, like, the water's going this way and I'm rowing this way.
Yep.
So, I'm rowing against what the devil wants me to do. And I'm like, pound sand, bro. I got places to go, people to save.
Yeah.
That I know that's like this oldest school, like Jesus saying, like it's a
Hmm.
camp saying or something. I can't remember, but yeah, I've felt that, and more, it's been more forefront of my mind as of late, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I a lot of times I'll think about the fact that like sure I guess it's just always been impressed upon me pretty strongly that whole verse of like, the world's temporary, but what's eternal was what matters, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I
There's
think a lot about that.
there's something I'd been thinking. It was during that whole rooted class, like, because I do have people in my life that are non-believers, and they're like, well, why is it this bad? Why has life sucked then? Well, why can't it just be easy? And I'm like, that wasn't the promise.
Hmm.
The promise wasn't it was going to be awesome here. The promise is that, you're not going to live forever.
Hmm.
You have an expiration date. Everybody does. We don't know when it is, but when we do expire, it's going to be awesome.
Hmm.
That's the promise.
Yep.
That's what you're saved upon. You're not saved upon everything's going to be hunky dory. It's going to be exactly the way I want it to be.
Hmm.
That isn't it. I don't know why the thought is, like, you get so sad when somebody passes away,
Hmm.
and I'll probably be sad when this hairball next to me passes away,
Hmm.
but he'll be happier. He'll be super.
Yep.
I mean, he's super happy now, but I mean, he'll be 1,000 times happier running. You know,
Hmm.
and I will be. I've seen it. I'll be 1,000 times happier.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not happy now, but imagine that times infinity.
Yep.
Which is what we're actually promised, is to live forever
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
paradise, not live forever on earth. That would suck.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think about it too. Like people get bent out of shape about how like rough the world is, and some levels that's absolutely like that. Yeah, you should be a little bit upset about it because there's an enemy that hates you, and we should probably be
Right.
doing something about it.
Right.
Um, but it's like we respect all the stories about people who were the underdog and came out of it. But then
Yeah.
when it's like you're put into an underdog situation instead of thinking like, oh, I'm gonna dig out of this and there's gonna be a story at the other end of it. We're like, well, woe is me. I don't want to be here. It's like, okay, you respected when the other dude did it, but
Yeah.
when it's you that has to do it. So, but
Yeah.
there's so many layers to it. But yeah, so you're you sort of hinted at it. You've seen it, what is to come. So let's get into that story a little bit and talk about the really wild story of back in what 2020, 2021.
It was at the very start of 2022.
Mm,
Um, we had like a New Year's Eve party, and or maybe it was a Christmas party. I can't remember. Um, and then probably, I don't know, like a week. It must have been a New Year's Eve party, because like a week after, I felt under the weather, and I was like, oh well, well, first of all, Beth's mom, she works at the Pendleton High School
hmm.
as a lunch lady. She serves lunch, um, for all grades, and she hadn't answered the phone in a while, and I was like, man, I think you need to call your mom.
Hmm.
And well, I should say, at some point in my life, I've also been prophesied as having the gift of discernment,
Yeah.
and I've, I've seen some things. I've seen some wild stuff, and so I just had this feeling. I guess nowadays everybody calls it a vibe, right? I just
Hmm.
had a vibe, and I was like, dude, something ain't. I just feel like something isn't right. It's
Yep.
not like your mom. So Beth went over to her house, and she was like listless.
Mm.
She was like her oxygen was in the 80s. So my wife rushed her mom straight to the ER and they admitted her right away.
Mm.
And probably after that, or I don't know, it doesn't really matter where it came from, to be honest. But I got sick
Hmm.
and we all got sick actually. Eva had COVID and she like threw up once or twice and beep,
Not your daughter.
done. Yep, Eva's my daughter. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Um, and then Beth got sick. She even had double COVID pneumonia, but her oxygen levels never dipped.
Hmm.
I don't know how, like, I guess I don't really know how pneumonia works.
Yeah, it hits people
Um,
differently. Yeah.
yeah, like I went in like the 3rd of January and I was like, yeah, I don't feel very good. I have COVID. And they're like, okay, well, they give you an x-ray. And at that point, dude, I mean, hospitals are like, they're full,
Hmm.
like all the way full. Like because that just before Christmas, everything opened up. But you need to wear a mask, you need to do all the things, you got da 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 da,
Yep.
and people are just living life again.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I shouldn't say that like they were doing something wrong, because I don't think they were. But everything kind of opened it back up, and uh, I I just happened to not be. I don't think hospitals were really into making trying to get everybody in. Like
Yeah.
you had to be like
Really sick.
bad to get in. So they sent me home. No, you're good. Your lungs look good. It just looks like you might have beginnings of. They didn't even say that. It was like you're fine. You can go back home.
Hmm.
So I went home, and the next day around I don't know 4 o'clock, Beth was like, "Hey, how you feeling?" I go, "Yeah," and I'd been coughing up blood because I think I had just been coughing so hard
Yeah.
that my just everything was raw. It makes me cough thinking about it. And so I went to the ER, and again, I didn't want to because I was like, man, I don't want them to think I'm, like what's that called? Oh, when you constantly go to the hospital for,
Mitochondriac.
yes, I don't want them to think that I have like this problem. I have to keep coming here. And so I go in and they're like, whoa. And I'm like, what's whoa mean? Like this guy goes, like, you're a very sick man. I was like, this is the worst bedside manner I've ever had in my life. So I'm like left because I'm alone
Well, that's
because
crazy because
nobody can
that's
go
within
anywhere,
like 24 hours, huh?
not even 24 hours. And I was fine. Then I had double COVID pneumonia to where, like, if you look at your lungs on an x-ray, they're, it's, it's dark.
Hmm.
There's, there might, you can see like little lines of veins or, maybe something where you had a bronchitis or something like that, like teeny scars of white. Mine were like the opposite. They were all white with spots of black.
Wow.
That's what my lungs look like. And they're like, yeah, you're getting admitted. And so I text my wife. I was like, hey, I think they're gonna keep me overnight. So I get in there and they're like, yeah, you're probably gonna be here 2 or 3 days.
And this is at a time where they weren't about visitors, right?
Oh no, it wasn't. They weren't about it. They weren't allowed.
Okay.
I still had people coming into my room in mop suits, man. Mop
Hmm.
suits, like full on rubber gloves, rubber booties, like tape, duct tape, the whole spiel,
Wow.
like I was ET or something, like just crazy. And they would come in and they would draw blood and they would come in and they were always in a suit
Hmm.
because they were worried about getting COVID.
That's insane.
And I was proud. So I was, yeah, I ended up 2 or 3 days came around and the doc came in. He's like, yeah, there's some things I want to look at. Well, I'm probably going to keep you one more night. I was like, oh, okay, no problem. So the next day came around and they were like, we've noticed that they would do x-rays every day because
Hmm.
they want to see if your lungs are improving. And my oxygen was dipping and my lungs were not improving. And then they're like, hey, we looked at your last x-ray and we see micro blood clots in your lungs.
Wow.
I was like, okay. Like I remember being in the hospital and having a blood clot when I was a little kid from breaking my leg. So I've never thought that they were that serious.
Hmm.
And then after I got out of the hospital, I looked up the stats on micro blood clot survival in the lungs, and it was literally a 50-50 flip of the coin.
Wow.
So they're like, yeah, you're probably going to be here another 3 or 4 days. I was like, okay, whatever. Um, then I can remember laying in bed and my neck got super tight, and I was like, and my voice changed, and I was like, what's going on? Like I had this beard, so they couldn't tell.
Yeah.
And it felt like if you were to just like kind of squeeze your throat and your voice changes. And I was like,
Hmm.
I'm talking to my aunt and she's a nurse and she's like, you need to tell somebody. I go, it's probably nothing. She's like, you need to tell somebody.
Hmm.
I'm like, okay. So I tell them. And apparently I had I think it's called esophageal emphysema.
Hmm.
So I had a pinhole in my esophagus that was leaking the forced air that I was getting into the skin around my neck.
Wow.
So they had to turn the oxygen up for whatever reason, and that healed it. And yeah, that was like the first week of my life in the hospital from being, you're just going to be here overnight.
Yeah.
And then oxygen kept getting turned up. Um, I got asked the question, and you're always alone. I guess that's the issue.
Hmm.
And maybe it wouldn't have been so bad if, your people could be there with you, but they weren't allowed.
Yeah.
And so most most medical decisions that are important, I've always bounced off my wife. That's just what we do.
Yeah.
And so I was like, they're like, if it comes down to it, will you allow us to put you on a ventilator? I said, "Uh, no.
Hmm.
They're like, are you sure? Like, why wouldn't you? Is basically how they bring it. That's how they kind of
Yeah.
present it to you. Like, why? And I go, man, everybody dies when they get put on a vent. Are they unalive? I don't know. Is dies allowed to be said on a podcast
I'm
these days?
sure. Yeah. Of course.
So I mean, yeah, they were. I was like, nah. I I guess I'd rather not be put on it.
Hmm.
So I had to make a life or death decision, like on the fly. There was no like, you can let us know in a few days. We need to know now.
Hmm.
I was like, dude, I don't know. Like, it's heavy. So I was like, no vent. And then it turned into we have a we have a experimental drug that the FDA hasn't approved that we can use, but you have to sign a waiver to use it. It may save your life. They don't say it may kill you.
Yeah.
It may save your life. And I was and what are you gonna say? No,
Right. Right.
nah, I'm good. I'd already turned down the vent literally the same day. I no to the vent. Will you take this experimental drug that nobody knows anything about?
Mm.
I I guess. I haven't heard anybody dying from that, so I guess.
Yeah.
So they pumped me full of remdesivir. And I mean, they would probably say that saved my life. Uh, horse horse crap. I don't believe it. I know it saved my life, and it wasn't remdesivir at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
So yeah, they ended up moving me up to the ICU. And I can remember that day. I was like, dude, what? This like I was still getting up to use the restroom.
Mm.
Like I would get up on my own. Like I wasn't on bed rest. And then and I'm like, why am I going to ICU? Like it didn't make any sense.
Mm.
Like I didn't feel that bad, you know? And blood thinners and antibiotics daily, every day
Mm.
for the whole time I was there. So, and I think I was total in between two hospitals and a round of rehab in the hospital, nearly 50 days with COVID.
Dang.
So, and I think, well, I shouldn't say with COVID. With COVID, I was probably in the hospital for 2 weeks. I had COVID. And then after that,
It
I,
was like pneumonia, wasn't it?
yeah, I believe that. I believe that's basically what the diagnosis was pneumonia, and my lungs turned really frail.
Hmm.
Um, in the ICU, like I remember trying to get out of bed. They're like, you can't just let us know if you need to get out of bed. I was like, why would I do that? I can get out of bed on my own. So I get out of bed and like the whole place, the whole room is like red, like alarms, bed alarm, floor alarm, all this stuff's just going crazy. I'm like, whoa, what the heck? And so I had this nurse, and she was a travel nurse, and she wasn't your average run of the mill nurse. She was like, what the fuck are you doing? Get in bed. I was like, oh, I didn't know you were allowed to talk to people like that. Okay. So me and her bonded like almost automatically.
Yeah.
And I often wonder if she knows that I survived or not because, you know, my the money was on no,
Hmm.
that I wasn't going to, because it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So
It's crazy, dude.
yeah, it it gets crazier.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. Just being alone, and I never really thought about it. Like I I tried to tell my story, and the devil is against this, man. I'm telling you.
Mm.
I will tell you this forever, but the devil is so against me telling this story. And like when I had told you, hey, I might have a story you might want to hear, and I automatically regretted telling you. Like I didn't want to. I was like, that nobody wants to hear this. This is People are sick of hearing about COVID. They're sick about hearing all this stuff. COVID is so it's
Yeah.
like it never happened. Um, and uh, I just keep pushing through and telling the story. And I told it in my rooted class, and I was the basically the next to last because I didn't want to tell it.
Hmm.
Like I was the next to last person to go. was like, man, I don't want to tell this story. And then Beth told her story, and I hadn't heard her. I had Beth, my wife Beth. I
Yeah.
hadn't heard her side like ever.
Hmm.
Like I knew a little bit of it just by what she had told me on the phone because I didn't see her for 3 weeks. No, not that, that's not true. She came to the hospital that one day. Other than that, I hadn't seen her maybe 3 or 4 times in the whole time I was in the hospital
Hmm.
in 50 days or whatever.
That's
So
insane. That's
yeah, it
that
is
that alone is, I mean, that's almost what do they call it? That's cruel and unusual.
for sure. Like think about that. Like you guys are just married, so it would. I mean, we've been married at, up to that point 15, 16 years,
Hmm.
and I don't know. I guess it's six in one hand, half a dozen the other. To be honest, I mean, imagine your wife is having a child, and they're like, "Yeah, you can't
Oh,
be
I know.
here."
I know.
You'd fight. You
Yes.
would fight. I know you. And that, I mean, people would go to jail then.
I know, unfortunately.
People were going to jail
I know.
to try to see their loved ones.
I know. It's ridiculous.
Doesn't matter if you were in a spacesuit or not. Nope,
Yeah.
nope.
It's absurd.
So, so I mean, ICU. I was probably there for I can't remember. My timeline gets hazy, man.
Right. Makes sense.
3 or 4 days, something like that, or maybe a week, almost a week. And I was sitting up because they were getting me prepped to go home again. And I was sitting up. I was watching football. I was watching. I can't remember who. And I was sitting up at this chair, which is crazy to think. I was in the ICU, and they're like, "Here, let's have you sit up in a chair and get ready to go home."
Mm.
And my oxygen's at like 20. Yeah, maybe high teens because I told him I wouldn't go on the vent. So, and I felt what I think I told you last night. It felt like a pink, like somebody
Oh, yeah.
flicked me in the back, and I was like, "Ooh, that felt weird." And I was in there alone, and I hit the nurse's button. I go, "Man, there's something." I felt something in my back, but my shoulders like on fire. It's killing me. And they were like, "Yeah." That ask me questions about my shoulder, and I'm like, no, I don't know. It was fine. They're like, well, you probably just need to lay in the prone. I go, I don't feel like that's right. And they're like, sir, don't just lay in the prone. You'll be okay. And I was like, and this whole time, and maybe just me in general, I'm not really a. Well, that's not true. When I'm in the position that I was in, these people are there to save my life. So they got to know what they're talking about. So I listened and I laid in the prone. And I
Yeah.
remember not being able to breathe very well. Like like every time I'd take a breath, it hurt. Like it hurt. And I'm like, man, what the frick is going on? And I just kind of remember falling asleep and still feeling that pain. That I mean, the word pain, it pretty much follows the whole rest of my story all the way through.
Hmm.
But I remember waking up, people talking over me. Um, and it's weird when you're in that kind of a position, you can remember weird things. And the lady had a iPhone and it had like a chartreuse pink iPhone case around it. And I remember her eyes were huge. And
Man.
she's talking to the doctor, the nurse practitioner is talking to the doctor on the phone. And I think I'm still in the prone at this point. And I may have been there. It seemed like it was in the morning, and I think I'd probably been there a few hours. And they must have thought I was just sleeping soundly and didn't want to bug me. I don't know. And maybe my timeline's off for that too. I can't tell you. I remember because she's on speakerphone, so I can hear everything the doctor's saying. He's like, I'm 40 minutes away, and she's like, I don't think we have 40 minutes. And I was like, I wonder what that like clueless, like be, I don't even know if I'm clueless or if I'm just listless and half dead. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, why don't they have 40 minutes? That's weird. And they're talking to me. They're like, "Sir, we're gonna have to turn you over, and we're gonna have to lay your bed down." I'm like, I can't breathe like that, and I can't breathe even worse now. They're like, "Well, what's happened is your lung is collapsed, and we're going to have to put a chest tube in to reinflate it."
Mm,
I was like, I didn't know what any of that meant. I knew what a collapsed lung was, but
right.
I did never heard of a chest tube. Like the most serious thing I've ever have had happen to me up to that point was like broken leg in kindergarten, maybe a hernia surgery or two.
Hmm.
That's it. I had wisdom teeth pulled,
Yeah.
like nothing, nothing crazy, no accidents that were life threatening, nothing. So I know nothing of what any of this is, and so the nurse practitioner is like, I've never done one, but I'll do it because I don't think we have 40 minutes. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I don't know what a chest tube is, but she's never done one. That can't be great.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, if one person saved my life, it was her.
Hmm.
And so basically what they do for a chest tube is they put Nova like numb your skin with a Novocaine,
Yep. Right through the ribs, right?
and they make a little slit. Actually, it was just below.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. No, you're right. It is in the rib cage. You're right.
Yeah.
So it
My
was just right
brother's
in the rib.
my brother's got a scar from when they did it when he was an infant.
Okay. So yeah, they take basically a giant needle that has a graduated needle on it, and they squirrel a tube into your rib cage, and they put this tube over a hole in your lung, and they feed it to an atrium. It's what it's called, and all this red gunky fluid came flying out, and I was like, oh, like I could breathe, but it hurt so bad, dude, to
Yeah.
breathe.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long. I, it was morning time, and then the doc came in and was like, "Hey, we got some good news. Your wife's gonna come see you today." I was like, "Whoa, that's crazy! I didn't even think she could come. Awesome."
Yeah.
And then he left the room, and I was laying there for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, and all of a sudden the gears finally started to turn.
You finally
And
had
I was like,
oxygen getting to your brain.
and I was like, wait a minute. I thought COVID was vaporized in the room. My wife can't. Oh, oh, they don't think I might not. I might not make it.
Yeah.
That finally dawned on me, and I called the nurse to tell I needed to talk to the doc again. So the doc came back. His name is Doc Ula, and he's like, "Yep, we've called your wife." I go, "You need to call her back, and you need to tell her why she's coming in. Like she just probably thinks she's coming in for a visit,
Hmm.
and you need to tell her why she's coming in." And he was like, "Okay." And I go, and before he walked out, I touched his arm. I said, "Hey man, you've got one job today. You make sure I go home. That's your only job." And he ended up doing some pro bono work on me because he wasn't in my insurance, which is crazy. Insurance is wild bananas.
Yeah.
And he told me that when I told him that, he walked out in the hallway and cried.
Yeah, it's heavy.
because yeah, it was super heavy. And I can remember my wife coming in and they had me. I remember I was low enough to where I had to look at her through the stainless steel guardrails on the bed. Um, and I can just remember holding her hand and just kind of being with her in that moment. And it's still pretty heavy.
Yeah.
But huh. But yeah, she stayed there with me and I can just remember fading in and out of consciousness, basically. Like just sleep, or maybe it was sleep. I don't know. I don't want to overstate what it was. I have no idea. Um, and she, I don't know. I don't remember how it came up, Thomas. I just remember thinking to myself, like, I just remember fading in and out, and for whatever reason, I can't remember. She was like, if you, and I don't, this whole time is like, it's just difficult, you know? Like, it had to be freaking hard as hell for her.
Oh yeah.
And you know, and she said something, and I always say it wrong because it makes it sound like she's like, you can die whenever you want. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that, it was more like, I love you, and Eva and I just want you to know that Eva and I will be okay. Is more, do you
Yeah,
understand? I
yeah.
hope you
Uh,
understand the sentiment.
yeah, I do.
It's not like she was like, all right, get
No, I
on, get.
I I get it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get it. I absolutely do.
Because I've told this story and she's been like, well, that sounds like I cared all that much if you died or not. And I was like, oh, I didn't mean to put it off like that.
No, I get what you
But
mean.
um, I remember telling her, I was like, I am just really tired. And I remember like it was very hard to breathe. I think I told you like my oxygen was like in the 20s,
Hmm.
20 some liter, however high you can be on probably, I don't know, quarter-inch tubing.
Hmm.
I had an over nose cannula. It was all vaporized, moisturized air. And I was just like, I'm just so tired. Like my body feels tired and I'm tired of fighting. I don't really want to fight anymore.
Hmm.
And I can remember looking at her and like drifting off. And then I can remember distinctly opening my eyes and being in the woods. Like I was standing in the woods and I was like, I can't remember what I was wearing. Um, but I was standing in the woods and I was looking around and it was like leaves like you could even smell like how the earth smells in the woods.
Hmm.
And I was like, whoa, like as far as I could look right and left, it was like a lane of trees. Like you couldn't see. And as far up as I looked, it was trees as far up. Like it was just trees forever. But it was like daylight, but you couldn't see. I don't know how to explain it. But I was like walking in leaves and I looked down and I kind of looked around and I looked up and I was standing in front of a cabin. It was like in a clearing. And at that moment I was like, I wonder I wonder if I'm dead. I wonder if I died. Like is this what I wonder if we each just I wonder if this is what heaven is for everybody. Like you like the song said like you get your there's many rooms and this one is and this one's mine. And I was like, man, I wonder if I died. Like I've never died before. I don't know what dying's like. And
Yeah.
then a voice, I'm 110 on this, that it was the Lord speaking directly to me because we had spoke a lot Like it was the closest I had ever been in relationship with the Lord in my life when I was in the hospital.
Yeah.
And he had told me, "You are not going to die. You have to tell my story and raise your daughter." And I was like, man, is that like, is this, am I just cooking this on my own? Like, I didn't know. But then at that point, it was crystal, man.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to tell my story, not your wife in your death have your story told. And I want and you need to raise your daughter. And I was like, yeah, I need to raise my daughter and tell his story. And then my eyes opened up and I was looking at my wife. And I was like, I think I just went to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really think I just came back from heaven. And she's like, where did you go? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I, I wasn't here and I was in the woods. And then the Lord told me, and I go, I'm not dying here today.
Mm.
And this COVID isn't killing me. I already know that. Whatever happens, I'm not dying. And she was like, yeah, I know. And I think she was still in comfort mode. Because it looked bad, dude. Like
Yeah.
there's no way to sugarcoat it.
Yeah. It would be hard to believe there.
And she was like, I know. And I was like, no, serious. I'm not, this isn't killing me.
Yeah.
He told me I have to tell a story and I have to raise Eva. And she was like, okay. And like, she doesn't know it, but I saw in her eyes, like, they changed from like sorrow to like determination. And she says there was no feeling, but I guess you could say I could discern it.
Mm-hmm.
I could see in her eyes something absolutely change. Um, and the, the devil attacked me 3 times after that.
Mm-hmm.
He brought music into I hadn't thought about music in 2 weeks, dude. Not even a blip on the screen. And all of a sudden, old songs that I'd listened to started playing in my head. And I rebuked the devil out loud, like loudly and boldly rebuked the devil and cast him out of my room. And these nurses are like wide eyed, like, why is this dude losing his mind in here? He is dying. This dude's gone. He's a goner. Like, the devil is in here. And I had to do that 3 times, and then it was quiet. Like, nothing was in my head after that.
Mm.
And then in like probably like 8 or 9 feet from my bed, there's this like huge eight, like ceiling to floor, probably 6 foot wide, oval shaped ball of light. Like, people, I've told people this, and that's where they get sideways with it. Like, they can, okay, you think your brain told you went to heaven. Okay. Okay, you saw something different about yep, all right, all that, yep. But when I tell them that I saw a gate, or either either the Lord, a gate, or one of his um one of his messengers was in my room.
Yeah.
I saw the light, plain as day. Nobody else could see it. I said to my wife, almost like if you ever went on a road trip, you're like, hey, look over there, there's a deer. That's what I did to my wife. I go, hey, look over there, that huge ball of light. Do you see that? And she's like, I I don't see anything.
Wow.
I was like, I'm telling you, it's right over there. And then it, like, I don't remember if it went away or what happened to it, but then there was this like weird feeling, this, like you could tangibly feel love in the room, or
Yeah.
like beauty, like you could feel beauty. It was so, it's totally indescribable. And I've told, the way I tell it is like, if you were to pick up like a piece of paper, or you can feel your hands, or you can feel, like you could feel beauty or love in the air, like, or in the atmosphere. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was so it was the wildest thing that I've ever had happen in my life. Um, and then they said that there were no beds. There's no beds in Indy. There's no beds in Muncie. There's no beds in Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois. There's no beds anywhere.
Hmm.
And they were like, "You're going to have to go be put on it in an ECMO chamber, which is kind of like a modern iron lung."
Okay.
I don't know. I've rambled, haven't
No,
I?
you're good.
And if
No,
I,
geez, you're good.
well, so to end kind of that, the whole death story, which everybody loves. Uh, they said that I was going to have to be put in an ECMO chamber and await a lung transplant, and they didn't have ECMO in Anderson. So they were like, "We'll let you know if something happens." And I told Beth, I was like, "We'll be going somewhere. I already know that,
Hmm.
like, because I'm not dying. I've been told I'm not going to die, and he promised, and I promised to tell the story." And probably, I don't know, 45 minutes later, they walked in and said, "Yeah, Muncie, or we're sending you to Fort Wayne. I think it's Parkview Hospital in Fort Wayne. They have ECMO chamber, and you're gonna go there to await a lung transplant." And I said, "I haven't told you." And I was like, "I told you." Like, we were both crying and rejoicing in the fact that the Lord's promise was real. Like, I everybody knows that the Lord's promise is real. You don't go around church and saying, "Oh, the Lord promised me something, and I know it's a bunch of crap."
Yep.
But when it turns out that the Lord's promise is real and you see it happen, it's different.
Oh yeah.
So, but I ended up going to Parkview, Parkview, and no ECMO and no lung transplant, and they turned my oxygen down automatically as soon as I got there.
Wow.
So either the doctors at Anderson don't know what they're doing and should be have their licenses revoked, or I was miraculously healed from the moment that I went to heaven, the
Yeah.
moment I came back and went to Parkview, you know,
Yeah, the
I
process
was,
started.
yeah, for sure.
Dude, that's awesome.
So, yeah, and that's the brunt of the story that
Yeah.
the Lord wanted me to tell. But I mean, there's like sprinklings and tidbits that I totally didn't say anything about, but
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's the main bit. That's wild, dude. When I actually read that the other day, when because for context, he sent me this in an email, and I got to the point where you were like telling your wife like basically goodbye.
yeah,
Dude, I was sitting there thinking about it. I just started like almost crying. I'm like, oh my gosh, because and it's been pretty visceral in my mind, just the fact that I could have died in that motorcycle
yeah,
accident. You know,
for sure.
so much so that like the other day I was coming home in the car. I was driving home from Costco, and there's this point where there's an S curve. It's a little bit of a long S curve. I come through the first turn, and this truck just blasts through the turn the other way and comes all the way into my lane and almost off the road. And if I hadn't slammed on the brakes, or if the green light before would have turned green any
Yep.
sooner, I would have got hit. And then he comes
Yeah.
around, and I see him in the mirror go around, and he almost goes off the road again, coming around the other corner. And I'm like,
Dude,
oh
I'm
my
telling you,
gosh.
man, the devil is working overtime on all of this stuff.
I'm convinced, but I came home, and when I told Emma that that happened, she still even has a visceral like reaction of like I could have lost you.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
so we've been thinking like we've had that on our mind a lot lately, and like just even the thought of that, like going through what you went through, like I was like, oh my gosh, like, but dude,
Yeah, it
that's
was
powerful.
I've told the story to it doesn't hit for kids, like they don't get it.
Hmm.
And I'm not, it's not like I'm sitting here trying to, oh, let's see how many people I can make cry.
Right.
It's not that so much as like, I think it's tough for kids to hear it and understand
Hmm.
because they don't know about loving another human. Or not all, I shouldn't say that about all of them, but not all of them know about loving another human enough to, what am I trying to say?
For it to be that visceral or real. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And like I had a lot of guilt, like a ton of guilt over, and the devil's he's a fuck dude. Just
Yep.
plain, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Bleep that out, I guess, if you in post production.
I usually don't,
But
but
he's the worst. Like you survive this thing, and the Lord, you make a promise to the Lord, and the Lord promises you, and you basically have made a personal covenant with the Lord. It's the second one, other than being married, that I've made with the Lord, this covenant and becoming a Christian.
right.
And the devil plays on you that you should feel guilty because you lived
Hmm.
and you wanted to leave your family because you were too tired to fight anymore.
Oh yeah.
And he tells you, what a pussy you are. You don't want to fight for your family. And dude, it took a lot. Like they offered me counseling all the time. All anybody that had COVID, they were offering counseling all the time. I was like, I don't want your counseling. Like I don't need counseling. I'm fine. But I was not fine.
Yeah.
No, I was the farthest thing from fine. I was messed up.
Hmm.
And I finally their like chaplain pastor talked to me, and I had this poor woman in tears over the same story. Like, I'd told other people at the hospital. I even told like this kid that was cleaning the floors, this young kid. I go, dude, if I ever write a book, I'm putting you in it. I have his name on paper somewhere. And I said, I told this kid I would put his name in a book if I ever wrote it. And because he was just, I mean, he was a solid dude. And he wasn't a Christian, but he was like, dude, that's the wildest story I've ever heard in my whole entire life. I go, yeah, you should have lived it, you know? So, but I don't know. This the whole thing of the devil playing playing on you,
Yep.
you know, that you're a quitter because you wanted to go to heaven. How dumb is that? I guess that's not dumb. How dumb is it that you believe it?
Right. Right.
You know, after all that you've done, after all that you've seen and all you've been through, and you're believing that that you know you should have been stronger.
Hmm.
I wish the devil didn't exist all the time, but
Right.
what, what would lead us to the Lord then?
Hmm. Yeah,
But
man. No, that's heavy. I mean, it's real. I mean, it's the most human thing is that, we can feel the full spectrum of emotions and then to know that the lie is like always around the corner when you
right,
feel something.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, it's totally natural that you would be that exhausted after fighting that hard for as long as you had, plus collapsed lung and everything else. It's like, yeah, my body's spent. Like, I kind of want to be done.
yeah, it just felt it. Like I, I don't know, and it ended up collapsing again.
Hmm.
And when it collapsed, the lady's like, "We have some bad news." I was like, "What? What is it?" And she's like, "Your lung has collapsed." I was like, "Really?" Like it
Hmm.
doesn't feel like it. She's like, "Well, you're only using about 40% of your lung." I was like, "Wow, it's better than zero." And
True.
she was looking at me like I was some sort of weirdo. Like what's he talking? Like they all knew that I'd what all I'd been through, because I still had the other chest tube in, and then they had to put another one in to reinflate it again.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a freaking chore and a half in and of itself.
Yep.
Um, but the Lord saw me through that too.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole point really of the story, and when I tried to tell the kids, they were just like, what's they didn't even really understand the point because I didn't like drive it home. The whole point is that, like I said, the promise isn't that it's going to be a cakewalk.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the promise. Nobody ever promised that this life was going to be easy. And sometimes it's going to be the hardest life that you've ever had, that you've had to live up to that point. And but the promise at the end
Yep.
is really what you end up focusing on, or what you have to focus on. I had TV, I had my cell phone, I had Jesus. That was it.
Yep.
And nurses, random nurses that came in every, was it 3 hours,
Mm-hmm.
I think, to poke at you and check your vitals and
And then leave.
whatever else, and then leave.
Yep.
Um, at one point, they had messed up reading my vitals and didn't give me some medication that I needed for, because I ended up, so I had a heart condition post
Hmm.
getting out of the hospital. I had what they call preventricular contractions.
Okay.
And kids, you can look that up because I don't remember what that means. Basically, if I would have been hitting the heart just right, and because it pushes and pulls blood, okay, but mine could have done both at one time, and that would have killed me.
Okay.
Or if I would have got hit just right, dead. So, and I think you're supposed to have zero PVCs, and I was having like 30% of my heartbeats were PVCs. So my heart was like it was turning into like a wallered out sock, is how the one ventricle, dude, I can't, I've been happy to forget all the crap I used to
Right.
know.
Right.
So, but to go back to what you're talking about on your deal, I I felt that for you. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you told me you got into an accident, I was like, oh my gosh, dude, like that, the just the attack that's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And this podcast it's digging into some stuff that doesn't get dug into a lot.
Yeah.
And I 100% believe that you're doing, and I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to patronize you or anything,
No,
but no,
yeah.
you're doing good work. You
Thanks,
must
man.
be doing good work just because of,
Mm-hmm.
I think I even said it to you. I was like, man, you must be doing something right because the devil's on your ass like crazy right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been meaning to do at the end of each episode that I've just forgotten to do is like pray through whatever we talked about because of the fact that,
Yeah,
there have been some episodes that afterwards we'd record them and that night we'd have nightmares or something would have, or she would have like terrible sleep or whatever. And it's like, oh, this is clear. Like I need to be like breaking
right.
stuff off after, and
Yeah.
cleansing
Yeah,
stuff.
I
But
actually, and I totally spaced on it. I wanted to pray prior. Should we pray right now?
dude, let's
Why don't
do
we
it.
pray right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
All right, Jesus, we thank you for this story. We thank you for your story through this and what you've accomplished in Bernie's life and even in my own life, Jesus. So we thank you for what it means and the hope that it can bring to other people. We pray, Jesus, that your will be done through Bernie's story and through his life, and we just ask that you continue to inspire and prove out, Lord, your sovereignty and your grace. We just pray that, Lord, anything that is pissed off by us talking about this, we just say, Lord, break it off of us, that we give it no authority in our lives. And we say that in Jesus' name, peace and shalom be over our families and over the listeners and everybody. Yeah, Jesus, we just thank you for what you're doing, and we ask for more of that. And God, we just give no ground to the enemy. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. But dude, I
The
I love it. I love your story. It's really it's just always cool to be like to see somebody go through something and then come out and be like, no, like actually the Lord said this and I'm gonna stick to it. And then all of a sudden you're healed, dude. It's
yeah,
crazy.
it was total. It was all of that, and then just to go through the heart situation and go through the
Mhm.
mess up on the medication, and then to go through the other chest tube, um, and then be stuck in the hospital. Like I was off all protocol,
Mm-hmm.
but there was no rehab.
Yeah.
Like this is the part. This is where it gets annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Is insurance.
Yeah.
Insurance didn't was like, why does he need rehab? Like I hadn't been out of bed in over 30 days, and they're like, does he need to go to rehab? Why? Why does he have to go to rehab?
Because his body's
What's like
atrophied.
right? No, it was like I can remember trying to use the restroom alone because I had to use the restroom
Yep.
and there was nobody to help me. So I did it on my own because I could turn the bed alarm off.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what button it was because that's totally me. And I turned the bed alarm off and I got up and used and it was right next to my bed.
Yeah.
And like using the restroom wasn't bad. It was cleaning everything, and I almost passed out because I couldn't breathe
Mm-hmm.
because just moving that extra and then kind of squeezing my lung, bending over and squeezing my lungs,
Mm-hmm.
could not breathe.
Yeah.
And then once you can't breathe, you can't catch your breath. And then once you can't catch your breath, you totally go into a panic and
Mm-hmm.
start hyperventilating. And then that leads to no oxygen, even less oxygen, and you're basically all just carbon
Dioxide.
mon- dioxide,
Yes,
monoxide,
dioxide.
one of those. And you
Monoxide's the
freaking,
poison. I've
yep,
had it.
bye, good night,
Yeah.
and you pass out.
Yeah.
And so there was that to deal with. And
Mm-hmm.
then, I basically did what little rehab I could do while waiting to go to rehab. I would get up every day. I'd walk 5, 6, 7 times a day. I'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, I want to go walk out in the hall.
Yeah.
And they're like, how far do you want to go? I was like, until I feel like I'm going to pass out. So I would go. I remember the first time I went to the door and back.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went 10 feet out into the hall and back. And then I went like 30 feet out into the hall. And then I walked all the way around the whole floor
Yeah.
and back. It was just a process
Yeah.
and still had to do a lot of it alone. Well, at that point, I could have had visitors, but I was in Fort Wayne. I
Yeah.
live in Anderson,
Yeah.
and
It's
my
away.
family in Michigan is 2.5 hours away. My wife was like almost 2 hours away.
Yep.
So I was still alone,
Yeah.
which I don't know, dude. It freaking sucked. There,
Mm-hmm.
there's no happy, feel good, uh, uh, Facebook video of my progress.
Yeah.
There's none of that because nobody was there. Nurses, you know.
Yep.
I mean, I had people come and visit as much as they could, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe one thing to touch on too for people listening is, you know, he did get the initial healing, but there was still a process, and that's usually the case. I think, especially in charismatic cultures, a lot of times they sort of expect the full healing right now.
boom, yep,
Yeah.
just boom, you're good.
Yeah. But it's not like that usually. And that's okay. Like I think people sometimes feel guilt about that even. of like, okay, well, I'm believing for healing, but I'm still not seeing it, and it's taking a really long time. Like,
Yeah.
that's okay. And that's, you know, he did get a supernatural, like real fast, okay, you're no longer on all the stuff, but there was still a
Right.
process.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And I still have to go through it.
hmm, I'm
And it's
sure.
not 110% out. I've almost resolved to the fact that I likely will not be 100% whole again.
Yeah.
Like I still have shortness of breath.
Yeah.
I have very minor cognitive issues sometimes. Um, I have incredibly vicious pain in my chest in the morning every
Mm,
day. I have every day since I got out of the hospital.
wow.
Um, it sometimes is in my back. I had to have 2 liters of fluid pulled off of my left lung
Okay.
because I bumped into I was fresh out of the hospital and I was like, you know what? I need to move this mattress. Yeah. Like with an oxygen
Classic.
hose in my nose, the whole spiel, dude. I'm like, yeah, I need to get this mattress moved. So I'm moving the mattress and I slipped and I barely bumped into the
Headboard.
roof cover on my dump truck.
Okay.
Like think just barely like barely bumped into it. And the doc said that that probably is my caused my lung to fill with fluid
Wow.
because my lungs were still healing.
Hmm.
And so I had to go in and it's called a something synthesis, and I can't remember the exact term,
That's all right.
pneumosynthesis or something like that.
Yeah.
And they basically take a tube or like a needle again. The 21st century, and the best they got is shoving needles into your body. Like I always wonder that. Like we're so far advanced with these stupid computers and cell phones, but we're still like, oh, shove a needle in it like a siphon, get the fluid off. I'm like, really? This is all we got? And they're like, it doesn't hurt that bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt as bad as a chest tube. And I'm like, okay, let's say a chest tube is a 10. Are we talking like, 8.5? What are we talking a 2? Like where are we at on the level? I can tell you it's more than 7. I can tell you that. It ain't great.
Yep. Makes
And
sense.
they're like, "Oh, just feel funny." I was like, "Dude, that doesn't feel funny. This hurts. Hurts a lot." It felt like when my lung collapsed because all this fluid had formed around my lung and was squeezing it to where it couldn't inflate all the way.
Okay.
So when it was almost like if you were to if you were to sprain your ankle or something and you hang like the appendage really far and you can feel it ache even worse.
Hmm.
Is that like I don't
I think I know what you're saying.
or like if you work against a sore knee or something
Yep.
because it's been bent for so long, dude, it killed and it killed all night long. And I thought I had another pneumothorax,
Hmm.
which is what a hole in your lung is, what a collapsed lung is. It comes from a pneumothorax, which is a hole in your lung. So I went to the emergency room the next day because I thought I had another issue. I mean, the PTSD, and I hate to use that term because
We
to
associate it
me,
with something different.
I totally associate PTSD with dudes with no legs, man.
Hmm.
Those guys have a legit reason.
Yeah.
I was in the freaking hospital. I shouldn't have PTSD. I shouldn't have to have every time I feel something weird in my body that or I'll tell you what, I got COVID after I was out of the hospital. I lost my shit. I lost my mind.
Yeah.
I lost it. I thought I was going to have to go back to the hospital and do this all over again.
Hmm.
Like I didn't sleep because I was worried if I slept
Yeah.
that
You
I would
might.
get pneumonia again because I was laying down. So I slept very little and I was constantly on the move,
Yeah.
constantly. And I was just paranoid,
Yeah,
panicked.
no, it makes sense. I mean, first of all, the stereotype of like PTSD is overused in culture, but like there is a reality to it. I mean, even my lungs, I got carbon monoxide poisoning several years ago, and ever
No
since then,
kidding.
yeah, like, and I was fine. Apparently, it's good I wasn't able to fall asleep that night because I couldn't fall
Right.
asleep. And like two or
You would
three in the
have,
morning, I was like, I gotta go to the ER.
I could have probably
But
seen you in heaven if you would have fallen asleep.
well, like I said, this was, I don't remember when this was, but probably maybe 2017 or something like that.
Okay.
And and I remember I went to the hospital at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and they're like, "Well, your levels are okay now. We'll give you some oxygen, but probably at this point enough of it has baked off that like it's a little surprising you were still cognizant because of how much
Wow.
you probably had." And I was like, "Oh, interesting. Good to
Yeah.
know."
Yeah,
Um,
right.
but
They
ever
always tell you what could have happened if you were there another 2 seconds,
Yeah.
you'd have probably died.
Yep.
Think
Yep.
you
And
could have
ever
just kept
since
that to
then,
yourself.
if I am in a room with too much like smoke or something, or I was in Idaho during fires, there was one day where I had to have
Oh,
an inhaler, or uh like even working in like metal fabrication, when I'm welding, I have to have a mask, otherwise my lungs,
yeah.
like, they're okay, but I get this like almost panic feeling in my lungs.
Yeah.
Like, even so much so that like if I can't sleep face to face with Emma, because even just getting like the carbon dioxide off of her breath like makes
Yeah.
my lungs go into like a slight little panic, and I'm like, okay, I gotta turn over.
That's
So
crazy.
it is
Yeah,
crazy.
I just I don't know. I guess being in the military, you just don't like you see people are like, I had to wait in a long line at Walmart, and now every time that happens, I just feel like I get this PTSD. No, you don't.
Yep.
No, you don't.
Yep.
So it's just very difficult for me to be, and like you
Yep.
said, it does get overused or it used to. I don't think it's like a stigma that much anymore, but I just have never, it's very difficult for me to go to the hospital.
Hmm.
Like I had to take my dog in to a large veterinary clinic here off of 96th Street over in Fisher's area. I guess that'd be Fisher's. And like the TV was on like diners, drive-ins, and dives, and the lights were fluorescent. And I text my, I was like, dude, I need to get the frick out of here.
Yeah.
Like I can't. Like I'm starting like my skin's starting to crawl. I can barely sit still.
Yeah.
Like I'm sweating.
The body
My I
remembers.
and I'm looking at my watch and my heart rate is raising. I gotta go sit in the car.
Hmm.
So I went and sat in the car for a little bit, and I was like, I'm just thinking to myself, like, dude, come on,
Yeah.
you can't, like, you have to cope, like, you have to be able to do some stuff that suck. It's gonna suck. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's still difficult, but I do it.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I had to go to the hospital all the whole time in Denver, and I've been basically a freaking guinea pig
Oh yeah,
ever
you were
since.
saying something about that, about you guys, you went out there to what was it? To find out if you could figure out why you had long COVID or something like that.
Yeah, so apparent like there's this place called the National Jewish Health Institute,
Hmm.
and they're like the pinnacle of pulmonary medicine,
Hmm.
and they don't know nothing either.
Yeah.
COVID's a mystery.
Yeah.
You you know what one doctor told me when I asked him, then why has COVID done this to me? You know what he said?
What's that?
We're just learning now what the flu did, what the flu does to people. I was
Wow.
like, what? Yeah, we haven't, the flu's 100 and some years old. We barely know what the flu is. I was like, get the frick out of here, dude.
I mean, we don't need to get into it too much, but I mean, the uh, the idea about how we get sick, I'm not sure we really even know that fully. Like everybody assumes that germ theory is it, like that's the thing that happens. Like you get a germ and that's how you get sick. But I mean, there were studies done a long time ago that were covered up that showed that some dude took people with flu and would inject their mucus and stuff into other people, and literally none of them got sick from it. Um, but terrain theory makes sense. Like terrain, like we forget that, like we act like our bodies aren't more than they are. But realistically, if you look at on like a electromagnetic spectrum, we are like a basically a ball of energy around us that extends like 5 feet, and that frequency interferes with other stuff. And there's been studies in like quantum biology and things like this that show that even our cell phones or our Wi-Fi signals and stuff like that, it's dissonant to that frequency that our natural body has.
Hmm.
Same thing with fabrics. Like we've learned that the reason why the Bible says do not mix, what is it? I think it's cotton and something else, linen maybe. And the reason it is they found out that they both give off a frequency, but they cancel each other out. And even when we wear polyester, which is most of our workout fabrics,
Yeah.
the frequency of that is like 20, I think, and our bodies are supposed to vibrate at like I want to say one, what is it? 123, no, 200, I don't remember what it is, but it's like higher, way higher. But when we wear polyester, apparently it brings down our vibration or whatever,
Weird.
and uh, it can bring it down to such a point where, like, I guess when we're sick, our body goes down to like 80, like the frequency of your body's like 80. So
Huh.
there's this whole field of research that isn't done around this stuff. And I think more often than not, we get sick as a reaction to that more than we do from germs. Now, I'm sure germs influence it, obviously, and viruses and things like that. They absolutely influence it. But if your gut is healthy and if your uh, environment is healthier, then you're less likely to get sick. So
Right.
there's this whole field of it that I don't think people actually understand the whole mechanisms of it all. So it doesn't surprise me that they don't really know a whole lot about the flu or COVID or any of it.
Right. I mean, I never really put that thought into it. It was just to me, it's just wild to think that, and nobody really wants to do any kind of like I thought that after I survived COVID that they would want me for something.
Hmm.
Like you are not the norm.
Hmm.
We need to be testing whatever is in you that helped you survive to see if we can make something out of it. I really thought that, I mean, that was my total thought because that's the way they were looking at myself and my mother-in-law,
Hmm.
who also had, I mean, she was in the ICU also.
Yeah.
And she is in her 70s at the time.
Hmm.
So, I mean, we're unicorns, man.
Yeah.
Like, they lost over 90%. There was only a 10% survival rate if you were in the ICU with COVID in Anderson. I think it was like a 10% survival rate.
Hmm.
So to to find out that nobody knows anything, they don't want to find out anything,
Yeah.
and we don't want you're now that you've done all the survive now that you're just throw you back out into the world because there's nothing special about you.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Um,
speaks to potential tomfoolery afoot.
yeah, right.
Yeah. But
Something stinky this way comes is kind of to play off the movie name,
mm,
but it just the whole aftermath, and like I was saying, like I they told me that the pain in my chest was not from COVID, but it was COVID related,
Mm-hmm.
and that there was nothing that they could do about it.
Yeah.
To me, it was just such a blatant, like, it automatically came to mind, like, dude, it wasn't, if this would have happened in 2021, you guys would have had me in a freaking hospital, in a hospital gown in 10 seconds
Mm-hmm.
trying to get the money
Yep.
that they
Yeah.
got for COVID
But
patients.
once the money dried up.
Yep. And that's not to say, so, the wild bill that I accrued over,
Month and a half almost.
yeah, but 90, 94% of it was paid.
Hmm.
Like I didn't pay it.
That's a heck of a blessing.
Yeah, for sure. And it wasn't there was no that wasn't because of my insurance, I'll tell you
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
I just have plain old 80/20 insurance, which I mean that's not bad. Trust me, I can remember the days of no insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm sitting there doing the math. I was like, what? How did,
Yeah.
like, this isn't my insurance? And apparently there was some sort of, there was like a COVID fund or whatever.
Okay.
And it was almost all paid off. I think our bill it only ended up being around 7,000, but it was over 155,000 or something like that.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally crazy.
It's a blessing.
Like they were like, they would try to give me pills, and I'm like, how much is that? Like, can you just put it in your hand and give it to me? I know you're charging me for that stupid little carafe cup you're using.
Yep.
You got a napkin? Like, I'll get a napkin. You put it in there. We'll save $10.
Yep.
Like, quit. So,
That's awesome. Well, dude, crazy story. Blessing though, and I think it's gonna bless a lot of people to hear. And I think it's always just cool to hear of the Lord coming through on something that's just that intense. I think it's encouraging to people to remember that like the Lord's still working and He's still in the hard times as long as we're seeking Him.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it again.
Yeah. Dope, dude.
This was good.
Yeah, man.
If you'd have me, I'd do it again for sure. We'll talk about the other wild stuff that's out there.
All right. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll,
All right,
we'll jump down the woo woo tunnel.
Right on. Well, thanks for being on today, man. Thanks for listening, guys. And as always, we'll see you next time.
All right, man. Peace.